It's a formal sound marking a royal event in a noble town. A procession of pipers performing for Her Majesty herself.
Today, we celebrate in our own way the Queen's Diamond Jubilee. And seeing that we cannot have Her Majesty with us, we've done the next best thing.
And that next best thing is a series of 60 rare images of the Queen from important stages of her life, each one taken by her famous photographer Cecil Beaton, which are now on display at the Royal BC Museum.
They're gorgeous images. I mean, as art, they're beautiful to look at. They're almost like paintings, but they also are wonderful pieces of history.
It began in the late 30s. The late Queen Mother saw Cecil's work in Vogue magazine and gave him a call. Cecil recaps the moment in his diary, stating, "The telephone rang. This is a lady-in-waiting speaking. The Queen wants to know if you will photograph her tomorrow afternoon." What he thought was a practical joke became the cornerstone of his career.
He was the photographer for the family through all the bombing of World War II. He saw destruction, and then these photos helped build the Elizabethan age we're in. And they're really about hope in the future.
It was said Cecil was more than just a photographer to the royal family, but he was completely invested in each picture he took. So for example, this picture from 1945 that he snapped in Buckingham Palace with Princess Elizabeth, it's mentioned the flowers that appear in many of Beaton's portraits were often picked from his own garden.
We understand that all of the backgrounds were particularly chosen for a reason, so we're trying to also not only look at the magnificence of the poses and everything, but why the backgrounds are there.
His process of shooting these photographs is in part as almost as interesting as the photographs themselves, because you realize, first of all, that he was shooting with a very simple camera.
A small handheld Kodak 3A folding camera, carefully planning the lighting, composition, backdrops of each photograph, and then having to work with the subjects.
And the royal family, you know, over the decades, have a very formal sort of way of presenting themselves. And what Cecil Beaton's genius is to humanize the royal family, to bring out the person behind the crown, as it were.
I used to have a little brownie box camera too, but I never took pictures like that.
One of Cecil's earliest photographs of the Queen was a snapshot from 1942. The princess at the time was 15 years old, dressed in a military uniform. Her father had appointed her colonel of the Grenadier Guards in the middle of the Second World War. At that time, she was the first female to get that title.
It's very affecting, you know, because you think this is 1942, the world was in great turmoil, and the Queen was put in this position and held up as a symbol of perhaps of hope. And I think it's quite moving in that respect.
The exhibit is split into 4 sections displaying portraits from the era of the Second World War to the birth of the Queen's children, all the way to her last sitting with Cecil Beaton in 1968. You can check them out for yourself at the Royal BC Museum until early September. In Victoria, I'm Jen Muranetz for The Daily.